If you're anything like me, you're an action figure collector. And if you're anything like me, you've been collecting action figures for a long, long time. It's usually not a hobby you just jump into. It's a commitment. It's a spatial commitment. And it's a lot about payoff because when you have a complete collection and you fill that shelf, it's a really cool feeling of accomplishment and it's fun just to bask in this. But prices are going up, like really going up. I mean, they're going up on bread and chicken feed too, but basic figures, $30 for a 6-inch figure, and it boomerangs to larger items. If a basic figure is $30, big items are going to be exponentially the same thing. Well, yeah, I kind of feel like too. I mean, used to get Star Wars action figures for $4.99. Actually, I remember exactly what I used to pay. It was $5.24 with tax. So, yeah, for a fiver and a quarter, you could have a Star Wars action figure back in 1995. And these days, oh my God, $20.99. Wow, God, that's like what Black Series figures cost, a year ago. It's crazy. I mean, it really is insane how much action figures cost these days. When I first started collecting Marvel Legends, I was buying them for $7.99. And now the exact same figure this year, $24.99. Kind of makes that vintage figure not feel worth it. All right, yeah, so we're paying a lot for toys right now. And it's made a lot of collectors question, how much longer can I keep doing this? And it's also brought up a really big misunderstanding, a misconception. A lot of it is people struggling with the idea that toy companies are price gouging us, that they're charging us way too much for our toys. But I mean, have you tried to look at the price of turkeys lately, getting ready for Thanksgiving, or I mean, even toilet paper and apples? Yeah, there are companies like McFarlane Toys that are still hovering around the $20 mark for a 6-inch, 7-inch figure. And guess what? It's a completely different business model altogether. Cue the sound clip from Airplane. Yeah, I mean, how does Todd McFarlane keep his figures at $19.99? Well, have you noticed that Todd McFarlane owns his own company and he can determine how much money he makes? His company, he can do anything he wants with it. If he wants to just break even, he can break even, and sometimes it's worth it for the publicity of getting a new line. He invested his own money in McFarlane Toys or Todd Toys back in the day. So, yeah, it's not that he lacks corporate greed, it's the fact that it's a privately held company. When you're a publicly held company and you're a very large company, which McFarlane Toys is not, it's tiny compared to a Hasbro or Mattel or even a Jax, well, you have huge amounts of overhead. I've talked about this a lot. Everything from healthcare to renting the building to paying the phone bill. And yes, most big companies have big office buildings that require large rent. They have to house that many people. I mean, the lawyers alone. They also are publicly owned, and if you're not familiar with how stocks work, I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but essentially the people who own stock have handed over money to the company in order for the company to run. In exchange for that, they're getting equity and they're getting dividends. It's business 101. And because the stockholders own the company, they get to set the profit margin. Much like Todd owns his company, he can set his own profit margin. And the one thing about profit margins that is the big misconception is with the high toy prices, people think that the margin is so high. Like, it keeps going up and up and up. And, companies are raking in the dough, and that's not true at all. A profit margin line is flat. No matter how much a toy costs, the toy company is still making the same amount of money at the end of the day, or the same percentage of money. The reason they're charging more, and I've gone over this till I, blue in the face, is because costs are going up. I mean, again, go look at the cost of bread and apples and anything else. As costs go up, companies have to raise the price. They're not making more margin. Yeah, they're making more physical money, but the margin's not going up. So a lot of collectors are then saying, is it time to be over? I mean, with action figures costing $30, $40, has this just gone beyond the price that we're willing to pay for an articulated character? And on top of that, are we really scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to character selection at this point? As I said in the beginning of this video, we've been doing this for decades. I mean, sure, the Marvel Universe is huge, and I'm sure they could be doing action figures of Marvel, Star Wars, G.I. Joe, DC for decades. If you want to scrape the bottom of the barrel, here's looking at you, Spot. Come on, Hasbro, make it happen. And I want classic Spot, not the modern one. With so many figures out for so many decades, a lot of us really do feel like we have a complete collection. I mean, we could collect endlessly forever. I would love more Cantina aliens, but I'd be very satisfied if Star Wars 3 and 3/4 would just put out the final figures from the original 96. I'm talking about Simalu here, the Imperial dignitary that's seen walking around the background and has not a single line of dialogue, but a very pointy, tall, Munchkin-esque hat. And yes, I know that Hasbro put out 2 Imperial dignitaries like 20 years ago, but they're not the one from the vintage line. There were 6 of them, and these 2 guys, neither of them are Simalu, this guy. So yes, I would specifically like for my collection a modern version of all the old Star Wars figures. With Marvel Legends, and again, I've shown this image a lot, this is my X-Men shelf, I know exactly who I still need for my collection. It's all been sort of pre-planned out. I need a Wolfsbane figure in the X-Factor outfit. I need Feral for my complete X-Force team. I need Avalanche to complete the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which has now been revealed, as has Blob is leaked, so we'll be getting Blob as well. And I need Banshee in this outfit specifically. This is the one that I wanted. So I'm kind of ready to throw in the towel, not just in terms of how much these figures cost, but in the fact that my collection is complete. I knew what I wanted. I knew the exact realm of figures I wanted. And there's no going back on prices. They're not going to drop. They're just going to keep going up at this point. So we're sort of faced with kind of a no-win situation looking at the new normal. But I think the positive side is the fact that we've had this golden age of toy collecting for so long at this point, several decades, that we do, many of us, have a complete collection. Yes, there's always going to be additional characters that would be awesome. But, and I'm not saying like just be grateful for what you have, it's not about that, but kind of with prices where they are, do we even still want to collect these things? I mean, are they worth it? We used to pay $5 for a Star Wars figure. Now we're paying $21? I mean, honestly, I find that hard to swallow. And I have a lot of pride in the fact that I have a complete set of the 1992 era X-Men. It's exactly what I wanted. I have every figure except for the few that I mentioned. Yeah, sure, they could be a surprise figure that comes out, but can we really just keep doing this all day? Can we keep collecting action figures no matter how much it costs when you take a step back and realize how much we've gotten? Well, are we kind of at journey's end where we can now feel like we started off as action figure collectors and we have what we wanted? Now it's time to just kick back and celebrate. Is that how you're feeling? Or do you feel like it needs to go on and on? I honestly don't think there's one direct answer. But what I can tell you from being a, toy collector my whole life, and especially the last 30 years, when we have just gotten a ridiculous abundance of action figures, we've gotten figures, things I never thought we would see in plastic. I mean, Mayor McCheese, Muppets, Futurama, superheroes, Metropolis, the silent film. I have a huge collection, variety of figures across so much IP, so much media, that if prices are getting to the point that we can no longer afford to keep this hobby going, honestly, there's not that much I feel like is lacking. I mean, there's always going to be holes in a collection. And yes, I do hope that, that Feral and Wolfsbane and, Spot Marvel Legends hole can get filled and, a couple more Star Wars figures. But I've got kind of my favorite characters in plastic. And if it does have to end, I'm really grateful for what we've got. And I'm glad I got so much while it was still affordable. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd like to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Do you feel like there's a lot of holes in your collection? Or really, have we kind of maxed out? I don't know. There's really no one answer. But I'd really love to hear what you guys think. And if you can share this video with others, it's the best way to show support for this channel. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.